I was sitting in that Chicago courtroom, listening to my ex-wife tell the judge with perfect tears streaming down her face. He never cared for her, Your Honor. He was always working, always absent, always choosing his career over his daughter. I raised Emma alone. I was the one who sacrificed everything. He doesn't deserve custody. He barely knows his own child. Rachel's voice broke at just the right moment. Her attorney had a folder full of supposed evidence, and I watched 5 years of being the best father I could be get erased, rewritten, turned into lies. The judge was taking notes, his expression unreadable, while my world crumbled. I had missed promotions to make it to Emma's school plays. I had worked night shifts so I could be there for her days. I had driven 3 hours each way every weekend when Rachel moved her away. But according to Rachel, I was never there. And it looked like the judge was believing her. Until something happened that nobody expected. My daughter, Emma, who was 11 years old and sitting in the waiting room with the court advocate, suddenly pushed the door open, tears streaming down her face, and said in a voice that shook with emotion, "Your Honor, please, I need to speak. My mom is lying and I can't stay quiet anymore." The silence that fell over that courtroom was absolute. And what that 11-year-old girl said in the next 20 minutes didn't just change the verdict of the trial, it exposed a campaign of manipulation so cruel, so systematic, that even Rachel's own attorney looked shaken. If you've ever fought for your children, or watched someone be destroyed by lies in a divorce, stay until the end of this story, because what happened in that Chicago courtroom will show you that truth, even from the mouth of a child, has a power that no lie can overcome. And subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, because here I share the most moving courtroom reversals, real cases where love and truth win. Now let me tell you everything from the beginning, because you need to understand who that girl was, who I was to her, and most importantly, what her mother had done to bring us to that point. My name is Daniel Cooper. I'm 38 years old. I'm a trauma surgeon at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. I was married to Rachel Bennett for 9 years, and we have a daughter, Emma, who's 11 now. Emma is my entire life. From the moment she was born, that girl became my reason for existing. I was the father who was in the delivery room, who cut the umbilical cord, who held her while Rachel recovered from a difficult labor. I was the one who walked the floors with her at 3 a.m. when she had colic, who learned to make bottles with one hand while reading medical journals with the other, who changed 1,000 diapers. But according to Rachel, in this custody battle, I was never there. And that's what hurts most. Not just the lie, but that someone who shared your life, who saw you be a father, could deny it all. Rachel and I met in 2012 at a hospital fundraiser. She was an event coordinator. I was a surgical resident. We fell in love fast, got married in 2014. The marriage was good the first few years. We had a comfortable life, both working, making decent money. In 2016, we decided to have a baby. Emma was born on June 3, 2017, and it was the happiest day of my life. Rachel had a complicated delivery, emergency C-section, lost a lot of blood. She was in recovery for days, weak, in pain, struggling. I took every bit of paternity leave I could get, which in the US unfortunately isn't much, but I made it work. I adjusted my surgical rotation, took night shifts, did everything I could to be there. When Emma was 6 months old, she got RSV, a respiratory infection. She was hospitalized for a week. I lived at that hospital. Rachel would come during the day, but I slept in a chair by Emma's crib, monitoring every breath. My attending physician at the time told me I looked like death. I didn't care. My daughter needed me. When Emma turned 1, I organized her birthday party. I made the decorations. I baked the cake myself. It was lopsided, but everyone loved it. I invited all our family. I have videos of that day. Emma's first steps were at 13 months in our living room, and she walked toward me. I have that on video too. In 2019, I finished my residency and got offered a position as an attending trauma surgeon. It was my dream job, but it came with brutal hours. Rachel and I talked about it. "Can we make it work?" I asked her. She said, "Daniel, this is your career. We'll figure it out." So I took the job, and I worked my ass off to balance it. I worked mostly night shifts so I could be with Emma during the day. When I got home at 7 a.m., Rachel would leave for work, and I'd take care of Emma until the nanny arrived at noon. Then I'd sleep a few hours and wake up in time to have dinner with them before going back to the hospital. It was exhausting, but I did it because I loved being a father. I loved reading to Emma, taking her to the park, teaching her things. Rachel worked regular 9 to 5 hours, so technically she had more traditional time with Emma. But I was present, I was active, I was there. In 2020, the pandemic hit. Hospitals became war zones. I was working 16-hour shifts, treating COVID patients, watching people die every day. It was the worst year of my life professionally. But even then, even in the middle of that hell, I made time for Emma. I'd FaceTime her between surgeries. I'd leave notes for her in the morning before I left. When I had a day off, I spent every second with her. Rachel started complaining during that time. "You're never home. Emma asks for you, and you're not here. I'm doing this all alone." I felt terrible, but what could I do? I was saving lives. I was essential. I tried to explain, "Rachel, when this ends, I'll adjust my schedule. But right now, people are dying. I have to be there." She said she understood, but I could see resentment building. In 2021, when things calmed down a bit, Rachel hit me with it. "I want a divorce." I was blindsided. "What? Why?" She said, "I've been unhappy for years. You're married to your job, not to me. Emma and I deserve better." I was devastated. I begged for couples therapy. She refused. "My decision is final." I said, okay, if she wasn't happy, we could separate amicably for Emma's sake. She agreed. We started the divorce process. I moved out to an apartment nearby so Emma wouldn't have to change schools. We agreed on informal shared custody, week on, week off. I thought it would be okay. I was wrong. The first few months were relatively smooth. Emma adjusted. When she was with me, we had our routine. I'd make her breakfast, take her to school, pick her up, help with homework, cook dinner together. We'd have movie nights, we'd go to museums, we'd just hang out. When she was with Rachel, I respected their time, didn't interfere. But I started noticing changes. Emma would come back from Rachel's house quieter, sadder. I'd ask, "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She'd say, "Nothing, Dad." But I knew something was wrong. In January 2022, Rachel dropped a bomb. She was moving to Milwaukee, 2 hours away, for a better job opportunity. I panicked. "Rachel, you can't take Emma that far. It'll destroy our custody arrangement." She said, "I have the right to relocate for work. You can visit." I immediately got a lawyer, Sarah Chen, one of the best family law attorneys in Chicago. Sarah was blunt. "Daniel, in Illinois, a custodial parent can relocate with reasonable notice. If Rachel has primary custody, which she currently does informally since Emma lives with her during the school week, it's hard to stop." I filed for formal shared custody before she could move. Rachel countered by filing for sole custody. And that's when the lies started. Her petition claimed I was an absent father who prioritized career over family, that I had minimal involvement in Emma's upbringing, that Emma barely knew me because I was always at the hospital. Each claim was a knife to my heart. Sarah helped me gather evidence, photos of Emma and me from birth to present, medical appointment records where I was listed as the parent present, school records showing I attended parent-teacher conferences, testimony from neighbors who saw me with Emma constantly. But Rachel had her own evidence. My work schedule showing I worked 60-plus hours a week, statements from her friends saying they never saw me with Emma, they lived in different neighborhoods, of course they didn't see me. And worst of all, a psychological evaluation of Emma where she supposedly said she felt closer to Mom. The evaluation was conducted by Dr. Helen Morrison, a child psychologist Rachel had hired. The report concluded, "Child shows stronger attachment to mother. Expresses sadness that father is always working. Recommends primary custody with mother for stability." I was furious. I had Emma evaluated by another psychologist, Dr. Robert Klein. His evaluation concluded, "Child shows healthy attachment to both parents. No indication of preference. Some confusion about parental conflict." But Rachel's evaluation came first, and it was damaging. The custody battle dragged through 2022 and into 2023. Evaluations, depositions, mediation attempts that failed. During this time, Rachel moved to Milwaukee despite the pending case, claiming she couldn't wait. The judge allowed it temporarily, giving me every other weekend and holidays. Going from seeing Emma several days a week to only every other weekend was torture. And each visit, Emma seemed more withdrawn. In September 2023, during one of my weekends with her, Emma finally broke down. We were making pancakes, our Sunday tradition, and she suddenly started crying. "Dad, I'm so confused." I sat with her. "About what, honey?" She sobbed. "Mom says you don't really love me, that you only pretend because you feel guilty, that if you really loved me, you wouldn't have let us move away." My heart shattered. "Emma, that's not true. I love you more than anything in the world. I fought in court to keep you close. Your mom chose to move." Emma looked at me with her big eyes. "But why does she say that?" I had to be careful. I didn't want to badmouth Rachel, but I also couldn't let Emma believe lies. Sometimes adults say things when they're hurt or angry that aren't true. I can't speak for why your mom says what she says. But I can tell you that I have loved you since the second you were born, and I will always love you. Emma hugged me tight. "I love you too, Dad." That weekend, I asked Emma if I could record us talking, explaining I wanted to remember our conversations. She agreed. I legally recorded her telling me about the things Rachel said. "Mom says you chose work over me. Mom says you didn't want to have a baby. Mom says you only see me now because the court makes you." Every statement was a lie. I had never said or done anything remotely like that. I showed Emma photos and videos from when she was a baby, from every birthday, every milestone. "Emma, do these look like someone who doesn't care?" She studied them. "No. You look happy." She was quiet for a moment. "Dad, why is this happening?" I told her age appropriately. When parents separate, sometimes they have to go to court to figure out what's best for the kids, and sometimes people say things that aren't fair. But the most important thing is that you know you're loved by both of us. But the damage Rachel was doing was becoming clear. This was textbook parental alienation. Sarah, my attorney, reviewed the recording I'd made with Emma's permission. "Daniel, this is evidence of alienation, but it's delicate. We have to present it carefully so it doesn't look like you're coaching Emma." The trial was scheduled for April 2024. As it approached, I was consumed with anxiety. My daughter was being manipulated. My relationship with her was being destroyed, and I felt powerless. 3 weeks before the trial, something critical happened. I picked Emma up for my weekend, and she had a composition notebook with her. "Dad, can I show you something I wrote?" She opened it to a page titled My Dad. It was an essay she'd written for school. The assignment was to write about someone important to you. She'd written about me. 3 pages in her 11-year-old handwriting about memories we shared. "My dad taught me to ride a bike. He was so patient when I kept falling. My dad makes the best pancakes and lets me put too much syrup. When I was in the hospital when I was little, my dad stayed with me every night. My dad is a doctor and saves people's lives, but he always makes time for me. My dad tells me I can be anything I want to be." I was crying by the time I finished reading. "Emma, this is beautiful." She looked nervous. "Dad, if you have to go to court, can I show this to the judge?" I was stunned. "You want to help?" She nodded seriously. "Mom keeps saying you don't care. But it's not true. And lying is wrong, even if Mom is doing it." I asked carefully, "Does your mom know you wrote this?" She shook her head. I didn't show her. I knew she'd get upset. I consulted with Sarah. She was cautious. "Daniel, having Emma testify is risky. She's 11. She can legally be heard by the judge if he allows it. But it's emotionally difficult for kids. And if Rachel has been manipulating her, she might say things that hurt us." I showed Sarah the essay. She read it, and her expression softened. "This is powerful. But we need to be absolutely sure Emma wants to do this of her own free will, not because she feels pressured." I talked to Emma again. Honey, you don't have to do anything. This is for adults to handle. She was firm. Dad, I want to. Because what Mom is saying isn't fair. You're a good dad. The best dad. We prepared Emma gently. Sarah met with her, explained what court would be like, told her nobody would force her to say anything, that she could change her mind. Emma was resolute. I want to tell the truth. We filed a motion for the judge to hear from Emma. Rachel's attorney opposed it vigorously. The child is too young, would be traumatized, is being coached by the father. The judge, Honorable David Richardson, a man in his early 60s known for being fair but tough, reviewed the motion. He ruled, I will hear from the child if, on the day of trial, she voluntarily requests to speak. I will not compel her, but I will not prevent her either. The trial day arrived, April 15, 2024. Cook County Family Court, Chicago. I arrived with Sarah, my stomach in knots. Rachel arrived with her attorney, Marcus Stone, known for being ruthless in custody cases. Emma was in a separate waiting room with a court advocate, Melissa Davis, who would support her. The trial began. Rachel's attorney presented their case first. He painted a picture of me as an absent workaholic father who provided financially but not emotionally. He presented my work schedules showing 60 80-hour weeks. He called witnesses. Rachel's mother, who testified I was never home. She lived 3 states away and visited twice a year. How would she know? Rachel's friend, who testified she always saw Rachel alone with Emma at the park, because I worked different hours. Then Rachel testified. She was Oscar-worthy. Tears at perfect moments. She talked about how she'd sacrificed her career to be a mother, while I climbed the hospital ladder. How she'd been essentially a single parent because I was married to medicine. How Emma would ask, "Where's Daddy?" and she'd have to explain I was at work again. How I'd missed birthdays, recitals, important moments. Every word was either an outright lie or a twisted version of reality. Yes, I worked a lot. I'm a trauma surgeon. But I never missed Emma's birthday. I attended every school event I possibly could, and when I couldn't, I watched recordings and discussed them with Emma. Rachel's attorney presented Dr. Morrison's psychological evaluation, emphasizing that Emma preferred mother and felt father was unavailable. He presented school records showing Rachel was listed as primary contact because she lived closer to the school. He built a narrative that was compelling but false. After 2 days of Rachel's case, it was our turn. Sarah methodically dismantled their narrative. She presented the photos, hundreds of them, of me with Emma from newborn to present. She presented videos, Emma's first steps toward me reading to her, us baking together, me helping her with school projects. She presented medical records, every pediatrician appointment where I was the accompanying parent. She presented emails with teachers where I discussed Emma's progress. Sarah called witnesses, my neighbor Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who'd lived next to us and watched me take Emma to the park every week. My colleague, Dr. Jennifer Martinez, who testified that despite my demanding job, I always talked about my daughter and left work for her events when possible. Emma's former teacher, Mrs. Johnson, who testified I attended every parent-teacher conference and was clearly involved in Emma's education. Then I testified. For 4 hours, Sarah guided me through my relationship with Emma from birth. I explained my work schedule, but emphasized how I structured it around Emma. I showed the court my calendar with Emma's events marked and attendance records. I presented text message threads between me and Rachel where I asked about Emma, where I coordinated schedules, where I fought for more time with her. Rachel's attorney cross-examined me aggressively. Dr. Cooper, isn't it true you work 70 hours a week? Yes, but I structure those hours to maximize time with Emma. Isn't it true you missed Emma's ballet recital in March 2020? Yes, I was performing emergency surgery on a car accident victim. I watched the recording Emma's teacher made and talked about it with Emma for an hour that night. Isn't it true Emma told Dr. Morrison she felt you were always working? Emma may have said that in one evaluation, but it doesn't reflect the full picture of our relationship. He tried to make me look bad, but I stayed calm and truthful. Sarah also presented our evidence of alienation, the recording of Emma telling me what Rachel said about me. Rachel's attorney objected, "This recording is manipulative, he coached the child." Sarah argued, "The child gave verbal consent." The recording shows unprompted statements about what mother has been telling her. It's relevant to show alienation. Judge Richardson listened to the recording, his expression inscrutable. After 3 days of testimony, both sides rested. The judge said, "I'll take a 30-minute recess before rendering my decision." He left the courtroom. We all sat in heavy silence. I was terrified. Yes, we'd presented a strong case, but Rachel's tears and the psychological evaluation were powerful. I could lose my daughter. During the recess, Melissa, the court advocate, came in looking concerned. "Your Honor," she addressed the judge who had just returned. "Emma, the child, is very distressed. She's asking to speak to you. She's quite insistent." The judge looked surprised. "Is she now?" He looked at both attorneys. "I did rule I'd hear from her if she voluntarily requested. Does she understand she's not required to?" Melissa nodded. "I've explained that multiple times. She insists she needs to speak." Rachel stood up looking panicked. "Your Honor, I don't think that's appropriate. She's too young. She'll be traumatized." The judge held up his hand. "Ms. Bennett, I will determine what's appropriate in my courtroom. If the child is requesting to speak, I'm going to allow it." He looked at Melissa. "Bring her in." Emma entered the courtroom, her face streaked with tears but her jaw set with determination. She walked to the witness stand area where the judge had a chair brought for her to sit in. Judge Richardson spoke gently. "Emma, I'm Judge Richardson. I understand you want to talk to me?" Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. "Yes, sir. I need to tell you something. My mom is lying and I can't let her keep lying." The courtroom went silent. Rachel's face went pale. The judge continued. "Emma, nobody is making you do this, right? You want to speak?" Emma nodded firmly. "Yes, I want to." The judge. "Okay, I'm going to listen to what you have to say. Just tell me the truth, what you've seen and felt. Can you do that?" Emma took a deep breath. "Yes, sir." And then she began to speak. "Judge Richardson, my mom said in court that my dad never cared about me, that he was always working and never there. But that's not true. My dad has always been there for me. He was there when I was born. He took care of me when I was a baby. I know because he showed me videos and pictures. When I was sick when I was little and had to stay in the hospital, my dad stayed with me every single night. I remember that. I remember waking up and he was sleeping in the chair next to my bed." Her voice was shaky but clear. The judge listened intently, taking notes. Emma continued. "My dad works a lot because he's a doctor and he saves people's lives. But he always made time for me. He comes to my school stuff. He helps me with homework. We have pancake Sundays where we make pancakes together and he lets me flip them even though I'm not very good at it yet." The judge asked gently. "Emma, in the evaluation you did with Dr. Morrison, you said you felt closer to your mom and that your dad was always working. Can you explain that?" Emma's face showed guilt. "I said that because Mom told me to. She said if I told Dr. Morrison that I wanted to live with her and that Dad was always gone, then we could stay in our new house in Milwaukee and I could keep my new school. She said if I said I wanted to be with Dad, the judge would make us move back to Chicago and she would be really sad and lonely. I didn't want Mom to be sad, so I said what she told me to say. But it wasn't the truth." The courtroom was absolutely silent. Rachel's attorney was whispering frantically to Rachel. Emma pulled out her composition notebook from her backpack. "I brought something. I wrote this for school. It's about my dad. Can I read it?" The judge nodded. "Yes, you may." Emma opened to her essay and read, her voice gaining strength. "My dad is the most important person in my life. He taught me how to ride a bike when I was 6. He was so patient even though I fell down 100 times. He always says it's okay to fail as long as you keep trying. My dad is a trauma surgeon, which means he helps people who are really hurt. He works really hard and sometimes he's tired, but he always has time for me. We have special traditions like pancake Sundays and Thursday movie nights. My dad lets me pick the movies even when I pick princess movies, and I know he probably thinks they're boring. When I'm scared or sad, my dad hugs me and tells me everything will be okay. And I believe him because he's my dad and he's never lied to me. My dad tells me I'm smart and strong and I can be anything I want to be. When I grow up, I want to help people like my dad does. My dad is my hero." By the time she finished reading, Emma was crying. I was crying. Sarah was crying. Even the court reporter looked emotional. Judge Richardson took off his glasses and wiped his eyes. He looked at Rachel. Ms. Bennett, your daughter just testified that you coached her to lie in the psychological evaluation. Do you have a response? Rachel was shaking. She's confused. She's been influenced by her father. Emma interrupted, something she'd never done. I'm not confused. I know what I saw and what I felt. Dad didn't tell me to say any of this. He told me I didn't have to come here. I wanted to because you've been lying about him and it's not fair. Rachel started crying. Emma, honey, you don't understand. Emma stood up from her chair. I do understand. I understand that you've been saying bad things about Dad for months. That you told me he didn't really want me. That you told me he only sees me because the court makes him. But none of that is true. I see how happy Dad is when I'm with him. I see how he looks at the pictures I draw and puts them on his fridge. I see how he knows all my favorite things and my friends' names and what I'm learning in school. You're the one who's lying, Mom. And I can't let you keep doing it. The judge raised his hand. Emma, thank you. That was very brave. You can sit down now. Emma sat, still crying but looking relieved. The judge looked at both attorneys. I've heard enough. I'm going to render my decision now. He organized his papers, and his expression was stern. I've presided over family court for 18 years. I've seen a lot of cases. But rarely have I seen a case where the truth was so clearly articulated by the child herself. He looked at Rachel, and his voice was hard. Ms. Bennett, your daughter just testified under oath that you coached her to lie in a professional psychological evaluation. That you've been systematically disparaging her father to her. That you've been emotionally manipulating her with threats of your sadness. That, madam, is parental alienation, and it is a form of child abuse. Rachel tried to speak, but the judge continued. I've heard 3 days of testimony. I've seen Dr. Cooper's extensive evidence of active, involved parenting. I've seen the videos, the photos, the records, and now I've heard directly from the child, who, despite being only 11 years old, showed more honesty and courage than the adults in this room. He looked at me. Dr. Cooper, it's clear to me that you have been a loving, present father who has structured a demanding career around your daughter's needs. The fact that you work long hours as a trauma surgeon does not make you an absent parent. It makes you a professional who still prioritizes his child. The judge's ruling was decisive. I am awarding joint legal custody with primary physical custody to Dr. Daniel Cooper. Emma will reside with Dr. Cooper during the school year in Chicago. Ms. Bennett will have parenting time every other weekend and alternating holidays. Additionally, I am ordering both parents and Emma to attend family therapy to address the alienation and repair the mother-daughter relationship. I am also ordering a new psychological evaluation of Emma by a court-appointed psychologist, not one hired by either party. He looked at Rachel sternly. Ms. Bennett, you are on notice. Any further attempts to alienate Emma from her father will result in a modification of custody with potential supervised visitation for you. A child has the right to love both parents. You attempted to deny your daughter that right. Don't do it again. The gavel came down. Rachel was devastated. Her attorney was packing his briefcase quickly. Emma ran from the witness area straight to me. I caught her in my arms. Dad, I did it. I told the truth. I held her so tight. You were so brave, sweetheart. So brave. Rachel tried to approach. Emma. Emma looked at her mother. Mom, I love you. But you can't lie about Dad anymore. It's not okay. Rachel broke down crying. For the first time, they seemed like genuine tears of regret, not performance. The aftermath was complicated. Emma moved back to Chicago with me. I adjusted my work schedule even more, taking a slight step back at the hospital to be even more present. Emma flourished. She was happier, more open, more like the girl she used to be. Rachel and I started the court-ordered therapy. It was difficult. For months, Rachel was defensive. But slowly, with the therapist's help, she began to acknowledge what she'd done. In one session, about 6 months after the trial, she finally said it. I was angry. Angry that Daniel's career was so important, angry that the divorce happened, angry that I felt like I was doing everything alone even though I wasn't. And I used Emma to punish him. It was wrong. It was horrible. I'm sorry. It was the first time she'd truly apologized. Emma was in the room. It was a family session, and she cried. Mom, I just want you to be nice to Dad. He's a good person. Rachel hugged her. I know, baby. I know. Today, almost a year after the trial, Emma is 12 and thriving. She lives with me, goes to a great school in Chicago, has friends, is doing well academically. She sees Rachel every other weekend, and their relationship has improved now that Rachel has stopped the alienation. Rachel and I can have civil conversations for Emma's sake. We're not friends, but we're cooperative parents. Emma still talks about that day in court. She told me recently, Dad, I was so scared that day. I thought the judge wouldn't believe me. I thought Mom would hate me forever. But I couldn't let her keep lying. You're the best dad and everyone needed to know. I told her, Emma, what you did took more courage than most adults have. You stood up for the truth even when it was hard. I'm so proud of you. Not because you defended me, but because you defended what was right. That essay she wrote, the one she read in court, is framed in my office at the hospital. It's a reminder that the truth, spoken with love, is the most powerful thing in the world. And that sometimes, the people we underestimate, like an 11-year-old girl, are the bravest ones in the room. If you made it to the end of this story, I need to tell you something. If you're fighting for your kids, don't give up. Document everything. Be the best parent you can be, and trust that the truth will come out. And if your children are brave enough to speak their truth, listen to them, support them, protect them, because their voices matter. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And leave in the comments, have you experienced something similar? Let's build a support community here. Stay strong, and see you in the next video.